Of different clans.
Wow, look at that.
And it's got Captain Alexander, Captain James Edward Alexander,
Wow.
1833.
Maybe if you come around this way, Tom.
And what we have in here
Or there.
are examples of,
Oh wow, look at that.
so these are all hand woven and naturally dyed. And this is, this is probably 1830, 1840.
That's what the lady had on today.
Yeah.
I knew it looked familiar.
But not like this.
I know it. Well, those
Yeah. So this is what's called tartan. In here we've got silk lines, which were quite common. There are, I think, I only know of 4 such sample books surviving from that period.
Wow.
So these were commercial sample books. All the tartans in here were woven by a firm called Wilson's of Bannockburn, who were the great tartan weavers. They started in the 1760s, 65. They were based in Bannockburn, just outside Stirling. And
I think I read about that.
They were able to produce, when they started, they were producing mainly tartan for the military, because they were the military were exempt from the Act forbidding the use of Highland dress. So they started with them, and then you start to see towards the end of the 18th century, the late 1700s, when the repeal, so the ban was lifted, people could start to wear Highland dress again. It became very popular as a fashion textile, and they produced a lot of these patterns, traditional ones.
Wow, look at that.
You know, Buchanan.
Look at that, that's fancy.
Yeah.
Really beautiful.
They're still woven today. But what's unusual now, when you see this today, it's woven in a very bright yellow and a much bigger pattern. Actually, when you see the original, it's just exquisite.
It is.
I do a lot of work with people reconstructing, you know, older patterns or in the original shades, albeit that they're not naturally dyed.
That's amazing. These are natural dyes.
These are natural dyes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is amazing.
And it just shows you what you can do.
Wow. And after this much time,
well,
it must have really been
you can see
vibrant in the original.
Well, that is pretty, you know, unblemished, if you like. You can sometimes see the yellows and thereby the greens tended to fade a bit more. They're less stable. Reds and blues tend to be very stable because they are imported dye starts.
Wow,
as I say, there are just loads and loads of different patterns. There are lots of them. Just trying to find you one that's got. I mean, you can see you don't need very much silk to lift a pattern.
Wow.
And it was a technique that the yellow silk. It was a technique that this particular firm introduced. I've had a firm try and do it today, and they failed.
Oh, really?
And they failed because the all cloth, modern cloth, is sent to a finisher's. If you send this to a finisher's, what will happen? Bearing in mind it's wool and silk.
The finishing material affects it differently from the different threads?
Absolutely, wool will shrink and silk won't. So what you end up with are horizontal copper, which just shows you, explains the difference that this was just taken off the loom, and that's it as it comes off the loom. And finishes, as I say, there are just, try and find you, say, MacDonald, which is just an exquisite pattern, classic of the period. If we've got a piece in here, or something that's got, that's, and again, these McKinnons, lots of just subtlety, so the pink lines in here against the red. These type of red tartans are less popular nowadays, you know, so people will, they wear them, they'll tend to go for a much duller red, etc. Because it's all too flashy. Because they don't understand that at this time, you know, any red was a good red. And so therefore, if you could have red, and it wasn't just Highland dress. You see, in the Victorian era, ladies' muffs in the latest red, for example, you know, because it was a really expensive and important colour.
Really must have stood out at that time period.
Here's
look at that.
I mean, look at this pink in
Gorgeous.
here. Yeah. So this is a shade they called rose. Here's a classic example, the Munro tartan, which this firm originally produced under the name Lochiel, which was named after a place. So the idea of clan tartan starts, as I said, around about the 1815 era. Before that, there were fewer tartans, and the commercial ones that were produced, so from the 1780s through to about 1810, were mostly named after people or places. Because again, if you give a pattern, this firm had some 300 patterns that they just had by number. But if you give a pattern a name, it just helps it sell more.
Yeah.
And it's the same as you see wallpaper and things like that. They give them names. Oh, I'll have some of that. And this firm were very astute in the 1820s, 1830s, etc., in naming tartans after popular people and events. So they produced a Walter Scott tartan, they produced a Waterloo tartan, a Wellington tartan, a Rob Roy tartan, anything that's popular, because people are like, I want the latest design.
Right.
And
well, in the United States, in the high-end textile business, if you go into a high-end fabric company with the wings on the wall, they'll have the Wellington, with the names of all the clans. Oh, look at that. I mean, that's amazing with the pink on there.
Yeah, I know.
Gorgeous.
And what's interesting is people often misunderstand the difference, and they use it incorrectly, terms such as colour, and they mean shade. So they say, well, the classic one is, oh, we've got two tartans, we've got this one and a darker one. It's the same tartan. All it is, you say to them, what colour is red? Well, red is red, yes, but...
What shade of red?
What shade of red, or hue, or tone.
Yeah.
And so you say to them, that's got two reds in it. Well, no, that's pink. The pink is about a shade of red.
Right.
So talking to people about the difference between shade and colour and hue, and then also the set, the pattern itself. So that pattern is exactly the same as the tartan that you would know as Black Watch or something like that. In structure.
Right.
So exactly the same design. All they have done is change a couple of those colours out. So how do you change a tartan? You can either use the same pattern and change some of the colours, or you can
change the pattern.
Correct.
Right.
And it's very easy to change the pattern by adding a couple of extra stripes or something like that. Or, I mean, the classic ones I say is the Black Watch tartan, which is blue, black and green. If you add a white stripe, it becomes Forbes. If you add a yellow stripe, instead it becomes Gordon. If you make the yellow stripe red, it's Murray, etc., etc. So you're producing a whole load of variations on a theme simply by changing, in that case, one stripe.
Right.
Or you can keep the pattern and just change everything.
So we talked about the plaids and tartans. A plaid and a tartan are two different things.
No, they are. They are to Americans. I say advisedly. Okay, so.
Look at that one. This is an interesting one here. Beautiful.
Right, so this is Wilson's pattern number 3, stroke 43, which they later called Kidd, because they were selling lots of it to a man called Kidd in the West Indies. And then Mr. Kidd sold his business to a man called Macpherson. And they used to call their records showed that they were selling X number of yards of Mr. Kidd's tartan to Mr. Macpherson. And eventually it became the Macpherson tartan. And then when the chief came along in 1816, 17 and said, I need my tartan, they went, here it is. And since then, that clan, the Macphersons, have been wearing a tartan, which before that they had nothing to do with. Really, classic type of story. So the difference between, tartan is probably, we don't know, but tartan is probably a French word or a Spanish word in origin, denoting a type or quality of cloth. So a fine cloth, thought to come from the old Spanish word tartana, meaning a fine cloth, literally from the word shiver, might mean it doesn't keep you warm. As opposed to plaid, which is an American term, and people talk about, there are tartans and there are plaids, like things with golf trousers. You say, well, actually, what's the difference? Plaid is a Gaelic word, meaning a garment. So if I said to you a male sari, that would be the nearest equivalent. People can understand that. People Gaelic speakers going into North America in the 18th century would have been talking about the clothing they're wearing as their plaid, and obviously that terminology has then become associated with the pattern.
That's interesting.
Tartan we think of as being multicoloured, but even at the time this firm were weaving, it was still also being used, quite archaic at that time, to denote a quality of cloth. So there are records to this firm from about 1810 of people ordering in colour tartan, i.e. one colour tartan, meaning a quality, probably a linsey woolsey cloth. But we generally mean it now to be this. So I would say tartan and plaid are the same thing. Tartan, plaid and check. What's the difference between a tartan and a check? So let me find you one in here, lots in here. Never find what you're looking for. McGregor.
Oh yeah, right.
Okay.
Oh, look at that.
Is that a tartan or is that a check? No, it's a check, except that it's got a name, so therefore, and it's used as a tartan, clan tartan, so therefore it's a tartan.
Very popular one.
Exactly.
See it
So,
a
so
lot.
what you would call buffalo, I think, this is buffalo plaid. So the McGregor or McGregor undress. This is sometimes called
lumberjack shirt.
Sometimes called Rob Roy.
Oh, okay.
And it's called Rob Roy by this firm, and that was based on the fact that Sir Walter Scott produced a very popular book called Rob Roy.
Oh, okay.
This firm also did this tartan in black and green, which they called Robin Hood.
Oh, okay.
And it just shows, they were masters of As I say, if that's check, then what point does that become a tartan?
Yeah.
Is it when you have 3 colours?
Right, right.
So if that's a check, so that's a check.
Yeah.
What about? Ferguson. What about that?
Oh,
Is that a check or is that a tartan?
Yeah, that's a check to me.
It's check, exactly. And this is what Wilson's would have called a cheek pattern, or a check pattern.
Wow.
So one thinks of them as being quite simple. But that, so that's now got 3 colours.
Yeah.
If that were equal size blocks, then you would say, yes, okay, that's a check. When you start then adding different proportions in, it becomes much, much more complex. So at the point you then move that red stripe and put it across the centre of the blue, is that still a check or is it to do with the size? And that sort of check, that sort of check is very different from the check on a chessboard. Yep. Because you cannot weave that. Oh. Because a chessboard has pure colours next to each other. Right. Whereas tartan has what we call half tones. It's the half tones. So it's where the red and black cross. And actually, those 2 colours give you visually 4 colours. Because you've got red, black, and then where the red crosses the black is visually different to where the black crosses the red. Can you see? And it's because of the twill weave. So effectively, you get 4 colours. And if you then start with 3 colours, it doesn't just go to 6, it becomes more complex. And so by the time you're using 5 or 6 colours, the number of tones and half tones you get in there is about 30. So it just shows you that thing. So what is the difference between a check and a tartan?
How many colours did they use at the maximum?
Historically, the oldest piece the most I have seen in an old piece, or an 18th century piece, I think is about 9.
Oh wow, that's a lot of colours.
Absolutely. So, and this is it. Do you mean colours or do you mean so that will be maybe 6 colours. Yeah, but maybe 6 colours, but then 3 different shades of red and 2 of blue, whatever. But let's call them colours. So 9.
Wow.
Commercially nowadays, they don't like to do that. They like to stick to 6 or possibly 7 maximum.
Right.
And that's based on the old mechanical looms, which had a maximum number of shuttles it could take.
Right. Well, we went to DC Dalglish. He said 6 colours was the most that they liked doing. Because I wanted to do some updated colorways for the interior design.
So there's one. Very popular tartan, Rose Stewart, or Princess Alexandra Stewart. That's got 7 colours in it.
Oh wow, yeah.
So they do it, but it causes them all sorts of problems. As a hand weaver, I can weave as many colours as you like. Yeah. Because it actually matters because I'm weaving a single shuttle all the time. So it's just how many colours and how many times I change it.
Interesting.
And you can go along. Now, what's interesting about this book, as I say, although its date has got a card in there of 1833, it must have elements which are later. And it must have elements that are later because it's got
look at that.
Victoria.
Wow.
And
look at
Albert. These are silk.
Wow.
So Albert and Victoria got married in 1840.
Wow.
So
wow.
This must be. So I reckon the whole book is probably 1830 to 1840 bracketed.
Wow. How did you get a hold of this?
It came. Gosh, we've had it for a long time. So it's not mine. This belongs to the Scottish Tartans Authority, and we inherited it from the predecessor organisation. Wow. And I can't remember whether we were donated it in the 1970s, 80s,
silk.
or whether we purchased it. I really can't remember. But we've had it a long time.
Oh boy.
But lovely, and it just shows you, the example. And there's a classic example of one of Wilson's, what they call fancy pattern. So no name, just fancy pattern.
Oh, beautiful.
As I say, and they had a whole number just by name. By number.